So, is it a good time to buy a buy-to-let? Well, look, let's find out with the help of the Zoopla report. We're going to be running through everything about supply, demand, house prices over the next 6 months, and of course, where to buy. Take a look at this report. House price falls negative 2.2%, which is mainly concentrated in the southern areas of England, especially where you've got prices of 300,000 and over. Why is that? Well, it's simple. The reality is because you've got to borrow more in the south of the UK, and of course that means that you've got higher mortgage costs, so people are just literally sitting on their hands waiting for the mortgage rates to fall. We then come down to the affordable markets. In economically active areas are still registering gains. So this is what I stated at the beginning. The reality is that you might have negative 2.2% in the south, but you've still got 3.5% in certain areas, and certain places, Halifax, is over 4% increase year on year. Higher mortgage rates are reducing demand at the moment, but I think that's going to change dramatically, and I'm going to come on to that in a bit as well. Because the reality is, as you can see here, the rise in mortgage rates, they appear to be close to peaking, and we're likely to see a return to the 4-5% mark this autumn. And I believe that's going to cause a flurry of activity in the market. Why? Because people think that they might rise again. So the reality is it's all to do with how we perceive things. And sometimes when we get a small window, or what we perceive to be a small window of chance, you take your chance, you get your mortgage, and I think that's going to have a big flurry in property towards the autumn period. Because the risk is that we're going to have higher rates for longer going forward. Even though I think they're going to come down in general, a lot of people think that they might stay high, so a big flurry of activity in the autumn. So look, let's take a look in terms of the demand. The reality is demand recovered in the first half of the year. So we saw a bit of a battle at the end of last year. We saw the mini budget at the end of September. That caused a nightmare in the mortgage market, the bond market. So what happened is we saw people sitting on their hands, and it caused the property market to fall. We then saw activity increase for the first half of the year because mortgage rates fell. They fell back to around about 4%. But then, of course, we had the big rises again, and there's potentially another one touted this week at 0.25% by the Bank of England, but we'll have to wait and see for that. But the reality is that although it recovered in the first half of the year, we've then seen mortgage rates increase to over 6%. So what do people do? They take a step back and they sit on their hands. So the reality is that the first 6 months of the year, fantastic. The last couple of months have been literally stagnant in the property market from a residential perspective. Now, where are people investing? Where are they making money? Well, they're making money if they're cash rich. That's the first thing. So if you see buyers that have got cash, they're investing heavily and they're getting big discounts on their property, because if developers or resale homes aren't selling, then what do? They have to give a discount, and the people that are cash rich are taking that discount. That's the first thing. Where else are people buying? Well, they're buying off plan. So what they're doing is they're saying, you know what, I'm going to secure the price now because they're getting a discount. But if it's not ready for 2 to 3 years, no problem, because they expect mortgage rates to come back down in that period. So all of these things are working. From a residential buyer's perspective, it's a tough market at the moment. From a residential sales perspective as well, again, that's a tough market. But from an investor's perspective, through an investor's eyes, there's great opportunities out there, especially if you're looking in the right place. So again, we've got here the decline in demand is less stark than it was in the wake of the 2022 budget, which is good. But obviously, we need those mortgage rates to come back down, which we've started to see a little bit this week. But we do expect in the autumn that's going to come back down quite dramatically. And we then say house price inflation. Now you've got weaker demand, increased amount of supply. So you've got it's running at 0.6% increase, down from 9.6% where it was this time last year. Because of course, after COVID, everyone wanted to buy. There was need for space. Everyone was rushing to get on the ladder, and it was this snowball effect. But we're now seeing the opposite. Supply has started to increase, and of course, demand has decreased. But again, I do expect that to be flipped in the autumn. And as I say, a lot of people are still predicting house price falls. We've already seen 2 or 3% house price falls, but the reality is some people are saying 5-6% by the end of the year. What I see is 2-3% at the moment. I see a bit of a slow summer, but come September, October, once we start to see and hopefully see that inflation under control, mortgage rates come back down, that's when I expect to see a big flurry of activity. So I don't think we're going to see the kind of falls that people are expecting, especially if we look at the northern market. Now, if we head to the market where you're looking at over the £300,000 properties, now where are they? They're in the south. London, just behind me in Canary Wharf here, you're looking at one beds, 800,000-900,000 at a minimum, sometimes topping over £1 million. So the reality is these people are going to suffer. Developers who are selling in the south are going to suffer. They have to give large discounts, or they simply have to sit on their stock and inventory and wait for the market to turn in their favour. So it's down south which is going to be affected the most. So where are the opportunities for you guys out there who are looking to invest? Still the same: Liverpool's, Nottingham's, Manchester's, and of course the secondary markets, places like Halifax are doing extremely well at the moment. But what I would do is I would still aim for city centres, major city centres, and of course if you start to look at those places, the Manchester's, where you can still get one beds 180, 190 in certain areas. Liverpool, one beds 160. Nottingham as well, 140s, 150s. Those are areas that either can be afforded by a cash buy, or where you can have a minimal mortgage on it, and of course the rates aren't going to impact you too dramatically. And you can see here, certain markets adjacent to London got house price falls here. You've got Southend, Watford, Hertfordshire. But as we start to head down, you can see at the bottom of the page here where you've got Halifax, Wolverhampton, Falkirk. We're not saying you go and jump on board in those cities, but you can see if the affordability's there in those cities, that's where the increase is to be had. So what we're saying to people is look at the pockets of the city centres, the pockets of Nottingham, Manchester, Liverpool, and even Sheffield, Leeds, those kind of areas, because that's where you're having the most amount of gain for a number of reasons. First of all, rents are still increasing dramatically in those areas. So we're still achieving on a traditional let, which is shocking. Whereas, a wind back a few years, we were getting 4 or 5% on a traditional let. We're now actually up to 7 or 8%. Why? Because rents are increasing, and that's coupled with a discount on the property. So if you bring the property price down and you increase rents, it of course increases your yield. It's pretty basic. So the reality is we still got great yields in those areas. And what some clients are doing, they're taking a huge advantage, and they're doing short-term lets in those areas and getting 10 to 12% plus in certain pockets of Manchester and Liverpool. So what's going to happen? Well, look, asking price cuts point to lower achieved prices in the second half of the year. But that's great for investors. That's what you want. You don't want the property market to be punching. You want the property market to be able to purchase at discounts. Like anything, if you're going to invest in it, you want to invest when you can get the low prices. So the reality is these kind of times when you've got uncertainty, that creates the opportunities. So many people sit on their hands during these times. Why? The reality is, as I said, it's the uncertainty that creates the opportunities, and the opportunities where you can go to a developer or you can go to a seller and ask for a 10-15% discount. And if you don't get it, move on. If you do get it, fantastic. You've just got an absolute bargain. So I think that we're going to have house price cuts to be bargained with. But what I do see is people need to secure these before the flurry of the autumn, because I think once you get to the autumn and if we see, as I said, the inflation, the mortgage rates fall, that's when I see things are going to start to even out a bit, and developers are going to start to think, well, actually things are coming back round, so there's not going to be so many opportunities. So let's have a look here. This is important as well. The measure is back to sort of 2022 Q4 levels, with 6.5% homes for sale seeing greater than 5% cuts. But as I say, if we look at certain pockets, we can get 10 to 15% here. That's our job. That's what we do here as a company. We really push these developers hard to get those 15% cuts for you guys, especially for those investors who really want to make the most yield as possible. Important as well, something we've been saying for a number of years since COVID, everyone went for the need for space. They want a garden. Everyone's coming away from that now. Number of reasons. First of all is the heating, the electric, the utility bills for your homes is expensive. So people are now shifting towards smaller homes. That's the first thing. Secondly, from an investment perspective, they've got to be EPC rating of C or above moving forward. That's the plan for the government. So what are people doing? Well, the reality is they're looking for these smaller homes that are more energy efficient. And if you're looking to do short-term lets, you're going to be the one paying for the utility bills. So again, smaller homes are going to be far more efficient. And you can see here, the reality is new sales of 3 and 4 bed family homes have been hit harder than for smaller homes. And of course, as we head down to this chart here, you can see 1 bed flats and 2 bed flats have had 10 and 9% fall in sales respectively. But the moment you head to a 4 bed house, you've got a 41% fall in the sales of those particular properties. So the reality is that it's the smaller apartments that are doing extremely well. And where do you find those? the city centre. Comes back what we said at the beginning, buy city centre, buy bargains, and you've got constant yield all the way through, month on month, year on year. As I said here, the outlook for the second half of the year, Zoopla predicted house price falls of up to 5% for the year. Personally, I don't think it's going to be that dramatic. And even if it is, let's be realistic, even if it's 10%, if you're getting a 15% discount, then you're still gaining because you've got 5% wriggle room there. Plus, if you're getting 8% income as well, then you're looking to make 13% year on year, including your discount, including your rent. So the reality is there's still great bargains to be had, but I think that we're going to be surprised what happens in the autumn and especially in certain areas once the mortgage rates come back down. So where would I be investing? Well, look, let's have a look. You've got Edinburgh, Nottingham, Birmingham, Leeds, Sheffield. I probably wouldn't be looking north of the border in Scotland at the moment. Couple of reasons. Of course, they're constantly looking for independence, but the reality is they are a lot stricter on certain rules. There was certain regulations that coming recently where they're saying certain homes can't be sold if it doesn't have a heat pump. So that puts certain strain on certain properties being sold. They're also previously said, well, you can't raise rents. Private landlords can't raise rents. So for me, those stipulations are a bit too stringent. So I would always be looking south of the border, and then you kind of look at the Nottinghams, Birmingham, great at the moment, Leeds, Sheffield, Manchester, Liverpool. It's the tried and tested areas which we're advising, where we think the bargains are to be had. So look, guys, great time to be buying if you get that discount. Hold out for that discount. Use companies, use an agency that can go and really push that discount for you. And if you get a great discount of up to 15% and your yields are still high, then again, it makes a great investment. Take care. Have a good month. See you soon.